In studio right now is the district attorney, Oneida County's Scott McNamara. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Bill.
All right, so what a crazy week.
Yes, for sure.
Man.
It's only Wednesday.
I thought today was Friday.
Did I not just? I think I said it to Jeff last night. I said, "What does it feel
Talking
like?"
About Meatball Madness on Sunday. It feels like we're already there.
Oh my gosh!
This copycat thing that's going on around the country has hit here pretty hard.
Very hard.
Yeah. So it looks like they have narrowed it down to a suspect. Mm-hmm. You've called in a threat. He said, I believe to authorities, maybe it was in court that he said, I really didn't want to harm anyone. I never intended to harm anyone. Boy, we got to think beyond that if we're a 23-year-old male at this point.
I would hope so, especially a 23-year-old male that's a college student. But he called him multiple threats, too, not just one.
Can you talk more about that? Because I actually just asked Scott that in the green room. I said, this is kind of ridiculous. And I said it's not a funny thing, but I kind of chuckled when Andrew read the story this morning that he didn't want to hurt anybody. And I said, what I said to Scott was, after what you did Monday, to have done this, tried to do this again on Tuesday. So you guys were more than a dozen phone calls, threats.
There was 5 that were threats, but there were, to the best of my recollection, there was more than 15 or 16 total phone calls. So
wow.
It is kind of weird that he would make that comment, because obviously I can't talk too much about the facts, but as is being reported by many people that were there, he was on the campus and he had a vantage point to see what was going on. So it's very hard to understand. I mean, I drove by. I didn't try to get in the way when it was happening on Monday, but I mean, it was a very concerning scene. And I don't know how the students or how parents of students that would have looked at that could really not walk away and be terrorized.
That was the hardest part for me was I was across from the campus and, you start to see the line of cars of parents. They're getting out and visibly shaken and in tears. Right. It was scary.
Was it, without you giving up too much information, based on the emails and the correspondence that was coming from the college to students, it almost felt like they thought he was on campus. Was there something that led authorities to believe? Yeah,
he was making comments that were consistent with what was happening on campus. So he was saying things that, like I think one of them was something to the effect, okay, so you got that building cleared, now what are you going to do?
Wow.
So
it's taunting.
So they knew at that point that he had a vantage point. And then ultimately when we were able to start to investigate it, it was, the Wi-Fi's that his phone and stuff was picking up that helped us backtrack it.
Wow.
But I gotta say, it was an incredible job by the Utica Police Department, by Utica College. I mean, it was a terrible incident, but I think we have a lot to be proud of in our community because everybody came together. And, honestly, it was the technology that Utica College has that ultimately was they picked the wrong school. He picked the wrong school.
Right, it's a tech school in many ways.
Right.
I was some of their curriculum.
With Tony Martino yesterday, we were discussing the evidence we had.
So it has to worry you, though, as it should worry all of us. If somebody really wants to follow through on a threat, how easy is it? I hate to say this, but he could easily have had a weapon.
It is, and I think we all become very concerned, and every time something bad happens, we all try to say, what can we do? Because we want to believe that we can be safe, but we live in a very free society, and unfortunately, if somebody wants to do something, the society that we live in makes it easier for that to be done. So,
all right, I'd like to. By the way, how long could someone spend? What is this person facing? 4 counts of terroristic threat.
It depends whether or not the courts look at what he did as being separate incidents. Giving him the benefit of the doubt right now, I believe that the 2 days would be considered separate. I think we would have a hard time saying each call on one day would be separate because it's already put in place.
Okay.
So based upon that theory, I think he's looking at it's 2 to 7 years, minimum of 2, maximum of 7 for each count, and I think you could run the 2 different days consecutive. So I would say 4 to 14 is probably what he's looking at.
Now you had mentioned there was, and I think Utica Police had mentioned there was a total of 4 threats over the course of the 2 days. But you had mentioned that he was calling in and saying, "Okay, you've got to build." So there was more calls, but the 4 that were the specific threats.
Right. We went through, and anything that we felt was an actual threat, that was actually where he was threatening to commit a terrorist act, we charged that. But there were numerous other.
So he was in constant contact with authorities.
There's a lot of other contact.
Was it an app that he was using? What was he?
There was an app. He was trying to disguise where he was, but honestly, it was the technology that he was using. Fortunately, was also the same technology. We were able to figure it out, but it takes some very, very smart people to do it. And I got to say, the people that were helping us, the Utica College lab that we work with all the time, just did a phenomenal job of backtracking it and being able to figure out, ultimately where something originates from.
As well as we spoke to AIS in Rome, played a role, and they, as Dan Khalil said, a former student, a graduate of Utica College, and this is a community that feels this is personal for all of us, and it should be.
I don't know if you can answer this or not. I just have to ask, because of the chaos caused Monday, and we talked about the comment he made in court, what was his reaction like? Did he not think? Allegedly, he's behind this, but
right.
What was his reaction? Did he not think he was going to find you, or you guys were going to find him?
I don't know about whether or not he thought we were going to find him. Obviously, I think he didn't think we'd find him because that's why he was using the app. But I do know at the time that he was arrested, he believed that he was going home, which I was somewhat surprised. I was like, how could you possibly see what I saw?
So he didn't realize the seriousness of the charge,
or he chose not.
Are we dealing with a mental illness?
No, I didn't.
At all?
I did not think that.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, his attorney will be able to go down that road and make all those motions. But and I've seen, I saw Bumbelow behind the scenes, and and I've seen a lot of different defendants before, what you guys see publicly. Mm-hmm. I did not get the impression that this individual is dealing from any type of mental health issue, serious mental health issue. Obviously, anyone that does this, you have to wonder, but
sure. Yeah. I'd like to switch gears, if we could, to the case of the Utica firefighter who is claiming that someone released bodily fluids on her. I'm trying to say this in the best way that I can.
You're doing good.
On her pants inside the firehouse. I have some questions. First of all, the WKTV headline: Utica firefighter accused of lewd act against female co-worker. At this point, have you accused this firefighter?
Well, I can see where that report came out, because in essence there is an accusation, because that's why we're in court. He has not been charged. No charges are filed. Basically, where we're at is that this incident took place. The female firefighter came forward. Our investigation reveals that there were 3 people in that house that night, and then a firefighter showed up early in the morning. The female firefighter is one of the 3. Obviously, what was on her pants she couldn't have produced, so it left the 2 males, and the 2 males that were there overnight voluntarily gave us their DNA. We compared it to the DNA from what was on the crotch of her pants, and it was not their DNA. So then, we went the next step, and that individual who was in court yesterday as subject of the hearing refused to give his DNA.
Is he the only one that's refused?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's the only one that's in. I mean, he's the next. He's the only other
next
person
one that could be.
that,
there is significance with that opening of the door and locking of the door.
Well, what his attorney is trying to claim is that a lot of other people could have been in there. I mean, that's what his attorney is alleging, and therefore, because a lot of other people could have been in here, that's his theory. It's not what the testimony was yesterday, but because of that, then there's no right that we don't have the right to ask for a DNA sample. So So basically what yesterday was, and honestly, we normally do not have hearings on this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is akin to a search warrant. We typically go to a judge. We present the stuff to the court in document form, and then the judge makes a decision based upon the four corners of our application. In that case, most of the case, it's the deposition of the police officer, the supporting depositions of the police, the people that have been interviewed by the police, and then the judge makes a decision. In this case, when we did that, the defendant had, he's on notice, because it's a little bit different than a search warrant when they come in your house.
Sure.
Although it seems, to me, a little less intrusive to have somebody stick a toothbrush in your mouth, basically, and rub the side of your mouth and get your DNA sample, versus someone kicking your door in and going through your personal property. But the courts have looked at the personal intrusion of sticking the toothbrush type of instrument in your mouth is more significant. So
it's not actually.
But at the end of the day, he has not been charged.
He's not been charged.
Then that headline can't exist. You can't have a headline that says he's accused of a lewd act when you haven't accused him of it.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the law here. We are subjected to the law as well. If we produce a false headline, and this guy comes out to be, let's say, crazy thing, he was set up. Crazy item number 2, that she produced the DNA. Anything is possible here. Right. If this guy is found
I don't know if that's possible.
If this guy you believe me, I've seen crazy, not that she could produce it naturally. I'm not talking about that. But what I'm saying, though, is if this guy turns out to be not guilty, he's got a slander lawsuit on his hands, at the very least, to members of the media. Now, you guys haven't made the accusation yet. You're simply going through a proceeding to get a DNA sample. You're following within the guidelines of probably his constitutional rights and the law. I'm not sure the media is doing the same thing here.
We've tried. I know I've spoke to other media outlets. We in that media outlet did not release the firefighter's name for that reason, and
so
that's
we're
why
not releasing it either for that reason.
I'm not saying his name for his privacy's sake, because honestly, it's too bad we got to this point. But we're at this point. It was a public hearing. I was a little bit surprised his attorney asked for a public hearing, but he asked for a hearing, and we're at that, and hopefully the court will make. Well, the court said it's going to make its decision on Friday, and assuming he rules in our favor, I would guess, knowing Judge Dwyer as well as I do, that he will probably then give the defendant a short period of time, like either someplace between a week to 2 weeks, to appeal. That's Judge Dwyer's very.
They're claiming Constitution. They're claiming Fourth Amendment. So you would imagine
we're definitely in a Fourth Amendment issue. It's a search. We're searching. I disagree with the arguments that his attorney's making, but I can understand why his attorney's making those arguments.
So is the issue not getting the DNA? It's how to get the DNA.
No, the issue is
getting the
we
DNA.
all have a constitutional right to privacy, and your DNA is something you have the right to. To privacy of.
Right.
And, but when there is evidence, and that's what he's forcing us to do, and that's why I think these allegations get put out there. There's evidence that we have to put forward to show that, first of all, there is a legitimate nexus between him and what we're investigating. 2, that if we were to take the DNA, that would be reasonable, that would help us investigate our case. So in other words, we can't just come in here and take all your DNA. You have nothing to do with it, and we're just on a fishing expedition. So we have to prove certain things, and then obviously his attorney's making the allegation that the fire department is kind of like an open door place that goes in and out. But they had testimony yesterday. I
have a friend who was charged with a crime that I believe he did not commit. The DA's office is not Oneida County. The DA's office offered him a deal. There are people in this world that believe so strongly in their rights, libertarians oftentimes, so strongly. He spent a year in jail. And I said, why didn't you just take the deal? The deal was no jail time. I will not confess to a crime that I did not commit. So to say that this guy, well, because I'm thinking the advice I would give to my kid would be like, let him use the toothbrush, please. Because
if you didn't have anything to do with this, give the sample. That's my advice.
All right. However, to assume that the person that would not give a DNA sample would do it, and it is unequivocally because he is guilty, is an unfair conclusion.
It is, and I think you hit it right on the head. There are certain people out there that they feel so strongly about their rights that to other people it might be irrational,
right?
But to them, it's not. It's a really personal thing, and
you've said it many times in this program. Hold your judgment.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do here. That's why there's no charges filed. We're holding our judgment.
Yes,
we need to fully investigate this.
Fair enough.
So in this particular case, and again, this is a serious and disgusting matter, so the person responsible for this, what type of charges would they face?
Well, fortunately, there is no law directly on point on this because it doesn't happen very often. First time in my 25 and a half years we had this.
Is it just a labor issue, do you think?
It's actually a mischief issue. It's a criminal mischief issue, damaging property of another because you basically render those pants there's nobody
certainly destroying the pants.
You're destroying the pants, so or at least damaging them to the point that they're not usable. So I get it. So I mean, it's criminal mischief. That's all. This is relatively minor. Obviously, I would suspect, and I don't know because I will say this much: the fire department has stepped back, letting us do our investigation, which is one of the things that we always try to do because you don't want conflicting investigations going on at the same time where people are taking multiple statements and then we don't know about them, and then down the road you have issues with discovery and Rosario materials, it's called, or Brady material, different things. So they've kind of like stepped back and waiting for our investigation. Obviously, this issue right here is a major thing. For them to make a decision, but I mean, I've been in contact with the mayor. The mayor and the police department have been fully, helping us. We're in a tough situation because of the underlying allegation, especially what's going on in the nation. When you're talking about the sexual harassment of a female firefighter while at work, it's a serious matter.
Sure it is.
And although our law doesn't have a specific charge for what was done, which I guess in a way is good because it doesn't happen.
There's zero tolerance today.
Right. I mean, we have no choice but to do so.
Yeah. Final question, and I got to move, but I have. I know I'm looking way ahead.
Okay.
But so the judge rules, they appeal, goes to another court, they appeal, goes to another court, they appeal. Do you get to argue it in front of the Supreme Court?
I hope it doesn't get that far.
I'm just saying.
But if it does, I'll have to think about
that. That might be a pretty cool. This could be a cool opportunity for you.
That would be pretty interesting.
All right, DA. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.